here to talk about storytelling. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Aliza, she is a pioneer in fashion storytelling in all different kinds of mediums. And so tell us a little bit about, again, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but so I want Aliza to tell her story about DKNY PR Girl.
Thanks, Sophia. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, team, for inviting me. Caitlin, Alexa, you guys are amazing. And I'm so happy to be here. My husband went to University of Michigan, as did my sister-in-law, and we are a Go Blue home full-time. Fun fact, my husband thinks that Michigan gear is his full-time wardrobe. So while I work in fashion, he wears maize and blue full-time. I think it's God's way of balancing us out. So I've been in fashion for over 20 years. I started in the magazine side of the business. I started at Harper's Bazaar as an intern and then moved on to Marie Claire in accessories.
I did too, by the way, sorry. We didn't know that. My first job, internship was at Harper's Bazaar.
Oh, interesting. We will
learning lots of things about each other.
So I've seen the business, late 90s magazine industry, which was like, you would die to be an editor, right, back then, and then moved over after 2 years to jump to the PR side of the business at DKNY, and then had an amazing 17-year career stint with Donna Karan and DKNY, which was just an amazing time and learning, and just worked with incredibly talented people. And through that journey, a lot of you, I think right now, you probably can't imagine staying at a company for 17 years. That's like an entire lifetime. And why I did was my role kept on evolving. And what Sophia is mentioning about DKNY PR Girl really started in 2009, before Instagram existed, guys. I know you can't imagine a time when that was. But in 2009, fashion brands were not on social yet. Maybe they had a Facebook page, but that was it. And at Donna Karan, we were thinking about sitting around in a marketing meeting, thinking about how we would do social. And one of the things that, if you guys were at the amazing PR panel before, with Elizabeth and Meredith and Jody and Lynn, it's sort of this spokesperson job, right? It's crafting that message so that your creative director, in this case Donna Karan, always has that perfect soundbite. So when you think about social media coming into, I guess, vogue, if you will, it was the antithesis of what we did our whole lives, which was protecting that commentary. And it was scary. It was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, there's going to be someone who's like posting about the brand without like the designer speaking about it, without PR approving it. So I didn't want people to think that Donna Karan herself was tweeting, because I knew she wouldn't be. And I was inspired by Gossip Girl, and I came up with this anonymous character, DKNY PR Girl, who would give people an insider view into her world, working at one of the best American brands, and essentially did that for 2 years anonymously, just like Gossip Girl, and then eventually came out as the person behind the Twitter handle, and did that for 6 years.
So tell us a little bit about the trajectory of DKNY PR Girl and what it did for the DKNY brand and the Donna Karan brand.
So it was one of the first examples of what we've called humanizing a brand in the space. When you think about it, you have your designer who's the face and voice of your brand, but Donna herself really spoke to the collection level, the luxury brand, and DKNY was sort of like this sort of younger sibling. She always said it was like the pizza to caviar for collection, where DKNY didn't really have a voice. So I created basically a narrative. Instead of pushing product and saying like, hey, our new handbag is in store, we're going on sale, I kind of went the other route and created really what would be a lot of people around the world, their best fashion friend. So when we talk about two-way engagement, which they spoke about earlier, I spoke to everyone all day long, and I basically ended up mentoring people about working in PR, about working in fashion through the use of Twitter, while at the same time educating people on like the magic that is Donna Karan and DKNY through celebrity dressing and editor relationships and events, runway shows, etc.
So it can't be said enough what the fashion community, where we were at that stage in terms of not just technology, but the conversations that were happening. Everybody was still talking about kind of print. Digital seemed like this, the ugly stepsister sort of.
Yes.
what's really interesting about your career is you were first in so many things. So tell us a little bit about, what's good about being kind of the pioneer, and what are some of the challenges also that come with being first?
So being first, I would get comments from my husband like, "Oh, are you talking to your fake friends again?" All the time. I'm like, "Yep, all day long talking to those fake friends." And internally, honestly, I think the reason why I was able, and I'm going to say the words, get away with it, was because no one really understood what I was doing. And yet I also taught myself. So it was very much like testing, hey, if I talk about, going to lunch with editor X at Fred's, does anybody care? Do they care more about that than me talking about a new dress that is now on the site? And in fact, they did. So I would speak about things that were happening in my life, like AKA going to get my hair colored or going to do a celebrity fitting. And it was not entirely well received. There was an editor at DNR, I will not name names, DNR doesn't exist anymore, probably because she did this. She sent an email.
I probably know who that is, by the way.
I'll tell you later. She sent an email to my boss saying that she has been a fan of the Donna Karan brand for as long as she's been in this business, and she was very seasoned, and she is appalled that Donna is letting this PR girl speak about things like getting her hair colored or having celebrity fittings or all of these things that have nothing to do with what Donna created, and she thinks that I'm basically ruining the brand. And I was, of course, because I had been there for so many years and I had incredible support from my boss and mentor, Patty Cohen, she called me into her office and she's like, read this. And I'm like, and I'm someone, I really always, I do care what people think. I want everyone to like me. So I was like, oh my God, am I ruining the brand? Like, I don't know. This has never been done before. Maybe I am. And Patty was like, you just keep on doing what you're doing. And I was like, are you sure? Because like, I don't want to be the person who brings down a company. And she was like, just do it. So I did it. And eventually people caught on. Patty is an amazing person. And then Women's Wear actually did a story like a few weeks later, randomly, on how DK My PR Girl was on fire and had reached 10,000 followers. I left it at 530,000 followers organically and over 1.5 million organically across all of the channels.
And how long a period of time?
6 years.
Amazing. Amazing.
But like no budget whatsoever.
So the landscape in the fashion industry was so different 10 years ago. Where do you see the opportunity now? Where's the white space?
So I think that, I mean, Lynn said it best before, it's sort of in this integrated marketing perspective. And listen, I'm a PR girl through and through. I'll always be a PR girl, but I look at brand right now so differently than I did years ago. It has to be this multi-prong attack on every single level. And I think looking at it from, like, I always say, like a 30,000 foot view, so not working in silo, not thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do this PR strategy, or I'm gonna do this digital strategy, or I'm gonna do this experiential strategy. It's like, no, it's like, what is the end game, and how does every single person in that company or in that department come together with a level of expertise to make it this explosion of media across every single vertical. It's very different than how we used to work. We used to just send out a press release and hope for the best.
Yeah. So true. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you listen. In the last talk, we talked a little bit about kind of how the PR companies were kind of gauging what was happening with their audiences. How do you kind of take a look at what's happening in like your social media audiences, whether it's for your personal or for, and we'll get into that a little bit more, to your specific jobs along the way. How do you kind of take that information in and then kind of integrate it into strategies and plans?
So I think obviously influencer right now is our biggest tactic. And some of the tools, I know they were speaking about it before, but I'll just mention a few tools that I think are really sort of integral into that. One of them being Hyper, which is HYPR. I think that you can't do influencer without knowing what the audience looks like for each of the influencers that you're hiring, starting with, do they have fake followers? What percentage of their following is fake? Are they posting themselves in a bikini 24/7, in which case their followers are probably 95% male? Is that your target audience? So you have to really, it's not just about the picture, right? It's not just about like, oh, she'll look great in our clothes. It's like, who is she, who's following her, and what is the buying power of that audience? And then strategically thinking about you may say to yourself, like, you know what? They used to say that it takes three times to see something to really have it, like, really get an imprint in your brain. Now it's like 17 because we all have ADD and we're all scrolling through our timelines like nonstop, and we have like 1 second to like really think about something, and then we forget about it. So we need to see something 17 times. So when you're putting together a strategy, it's like, okay, well, maybe I do want 25 influencers who have incredible audience overlap, so that when people are going through their timelines, they're like, oh my God, wait, there's that Dior saddlebag again. Oh wait, there it is again. Oh wait, there it is again. I don't know if you guys remember that day. Does everyone remember when the Dior saddlebag launched like a couple months ago? It was like every single influencer, you're right, and no FTC disclosure, right? We all saw that, right? No one said it. But illegal. But that sort of repetition is reputation is really what can make an impact. So you have to have the data around it. You can't just look for a pretty face. Who's going to look good in your clothes?
Cool. So I'm interested in going back to talk about your career. What's so interesting about your career is that it's not exactly linear, and we're here at Michigan, and we're talking about kind of, a lot of you guys are seniors that we met, and talking about planning and plotting your careers. And we've talked before, and I love that you were saying it's not kind of an either or, like, do I work for a big company or do I do my own thing? So let's talk a little bit about post DKNY and kind of your trajectory after that.
Sure. So 17 years at DKNY, I wrote a book called Leave Your Mark, which is a career mentorship that sort of came from my life as DKNY PR girl. I highly recommend it, not just because I wrote it, but because it really will teach you how to be a professional when you leave here. And I would say that I left. I went on my press tour, and I wanted to be on my own for a while, which I was for 10 months, consulting and doing speaking, etc. And I felt really alone. Like I tried to sort of embrace this, like, do your own thing, like you've been with a company for 17 years. And it was also really trendy at the time, I think, to kind of start your own company, and like, why would you work for someone? Like, it's all about being an entrepreneur. And I was like, I disagree. I kind of miss being part of a company and miss being part of a team and collaborating. And I went, at the time when I had stepped down from, or was about to step down from DKNY, Alice and Olivia had reached out for a communications role, and I politely declined because I was like, I don't want to go work for another company. I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to do this whole thing. And I did that. And then 10 months into it, I think one of the things that is really important as you're embarking on this road is to be really honest with yourself about what you're actually doing. So at my level with my network, I am meeting with CEOs all day long. I have an incredible network of people that I can meet with and pitch business to. And you can fool yourself into thinking like you're super important and you have these amazing high-powered friends. But I was really critical of myself. So I would keep an Excel sheet of like every meeting and like what came out of it. And at the end of 10 months, I was like, you know what? I'm really not that impressed with myself. Like
that's hard.
You know what? It's something that I really, truly believe in, because it's like, you look at it, I looked at the names on my sheet. I'm like, wow, I've got a lot of important friends. And guess what? It did nothing for me because I didn't have the drive or the passion to really commit to it. I think at the end of the day, I was always like, maybe I'll just go back in-house somewhere. And that's essentially what I ended up doing. Alice and Olivia reached out again at the end of that 10 months, and I was like, I always believe in fate. I'm like, well, now the job's bigger. It includes marketing and digital. I'm going to do it. So I did that for 2.5 years. And then also at that point, I am similar to what Elizabeth was saying before about her agency. It's like, I never feel the job is done. I am never impressed with anything that I have done. We used to say back in the day, like, you're only as good as your last credit. So you dress someone for the Oscars on a Sunday night, you'd come into the office on Monday, you'd be like, I'm such a rock star. And then by Tuesday, it was over, like it never happened. And it's like, okay, what are you doing now? What's your big trick now? So
we say that at Women's Wear, you're only as good as your last story, too. So it applies across all categories of business.
So I'm not someone who, I always feel like I need to do more. And I'm not someone who sort of thinks about my past sort of accomplishments and sits there like, oh, look how great that was. It's like, no, it's like, well, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? So I kind of felt like I was coasting and like not being passionate about it. And I am someone who's really passionate about what I do. And I thought, maybe it's a good time to just take a break. And it's funny because I've been out of work for 1 month, and it now feels really right to be on my own. And it didn't before. So and you can't be afraid of these changes. I think change is good, right? I always say if change doesn't hurt a little, it's not change, like nothing happened. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, as they say, we both go to exhale. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, right?
Right, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about kind of, going from DKNY, freelancing, writing your book, then going back to in-house at Alice & Olivia. What are it was interesting, I thought, that what Lynn was saying in the last panel of kind of a bit of every job kind of comes with you.
Yes.
The market had obviously changed so much in the time since when you first started DKNY till when you got to Alice & Olivia. What was that change like, and how do you pivot and adapt to kind of the new technology or what's happening in the marketplace?
So I am a huge believer in how pop culture affects branding. And I've always been that way. So I was live tweeting Gossip Girl back in the day, which moved on to Scandal, which, I've always been sort of immersed in what I feel everyone's doing at the time, and then been able to sort of integrate the brand into that story. So I think, it has changed entirely. And I'm sure a lot of you, or maybe some of you is anyone communications major in this room? Okay, this is a lot of you that are communications majors. I mean, what that means today, especially in fashion, is really, really different. I think you have to be really immersed in what you're doing across different verticals. You have to understand digital. You have to understand influencer. You have to understand brand marketing. You have to understand the media. And how we make those stories happen is just so different. So from Donna Karan, it's true. It's like we'd be like, oh, we'll just get a celebrity to come to the show and we'll get some press. It's like now that doesn't drive sales the way it does, and every company is looking for the conversion. So whether I was doing a partnership at Alice & Olivia with Bumble, because we're like, okay, who's our girl? She's probably on Bumble. She's dating. She needs outfits for dating. So we did a sort of in-app integration with Bumble. Or even Kim Kardashian Hollywood. It's like creating, a 2D version of the collection so that everyone playing the game could, work with Alice & Olivia pieces. So, and then getting PR on doing those partnerships. So I think partnerships has become, and as you see from even the collaborations in streetwear, partnerships has become a vehicle for PR. And I think back to Elizabeth's point earlier, where is she? She's so smart. There you are. Everyone still wants that brand story, and it's still important, but how you get it has to be way more creative than we have ever been before.
So going back to Leave Your Mark,
yes.
Congratulations, because it made Book Authority's list of best career development books of all time.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Read it, guys. It's so good. But what prompted you to write this book, and were you surprised by the reaction to it? Because you wrote it in 2015.
I wrote it in 2013, and it came out in 2015, and then I rewrote it in 2018 and added 5 chapters for the paperback. So it was not my idea. An editor at Grand Central, who's my publisher, contacted me one day. I was sitting in the office at DKNY, and she's like, hi, I follow you on Twitter. I read your blog, which I was writing long-form text on Tumblr, which was the opposite of what anyone was doing on Tumblr. She was like, I think there's a story, I think there's a book in here somewhere. And I was like, thank you so much, but I really don't have time to write a book. Like, I'm a mom, I have a full-time job, like, no way. And she was like, well, in nonfiction, you actually just have to submit a proposal of a book. You don't have to write the whole thing right now. And I was like, oh, that's a really fun fact. No, thank you. And she was really aggressive. She's one of my very, very close friends now. She would call me every 2 weeks. And she'd be like, hey, did you give any thought to what we spoke about? I'm like, yeah, and the answer's still no. And because also, I'm very much I have to be very much motivated to write. Even with Twitter, I never had a content calendar, and I never planned any tweets in advance. It was all off the cuff, in the moment, how I'm feeling that second. So to think about what I would write about was daunting. I also knew that I didn't want to write a book for the company that the company would own. It's so what am I going to do, really? And then I realized that what I was really doing online was mentoring people around the world. Because everyone would tweet or DM me saying, I want to work in fashion. Can I pick your brain? Can I take you to coffee? It's like, okay, how many cups of coffee can we have? Right? By the way, don't ask to take anyone to coffee. Not a good tactic. What you can do is ask for a phone call. And that is a great way to get to anyone because anyone can take a 5-minute phone call. No one has time for coffee. Also, by the way, way too much caffeine. So I decided I'm going to write a mentorship, and I'm going to talk about my career journey, everything I did wrong, everything I did right, and tangible advice where someone can open that book and highlight it and look back at it, whether it's where you're going in for an interview or you're negotiating your first raise, like all that stuff. Also, how to build a personal brand in digital, and how to really present yourself in real life because it has to match up to the person you are online. And what does that mean when you walk into a room?
Very cool. So we want to leave the audience with some practical career advice that you can start using today.
Okay.
So let's talk about some key concepts that are in your book also that you need to master to be successful.
So social media. You guys need to go through your social media accounts. I don't care if they're private. You need to go through them and remove every single post that an employer would look at and judge you poorly on. It is exhibit, I wouldn't even say exhibit B after your resume. It is like exhibit A. It is the first thing people check. And I think that a lot of times, and I've been saying this to my teams for years and years, it's like nothing is personal. There is no difference between professional and personal. Every single thing you post affects you professionally and personally in the same way. So it's a great idea every once in a while, every 6 months, to do like a spring cleaning. You do your closet, you do your timeline. You go through and you really think about, if you didn't know you, what is the message you are giving to employers? I think that is the number one thing you can do like today. The number two thing you can do is really think about, I'm sure a lot of you have done internships over the course of your years here, really thinking about who is in your network now and how you can re-tap into those people. It's a really important skill to kind of keep those relationships going as you grow in your careers and you sort of collect more people, to really stay in touch with those people and not ask them for anything. So just reach out, say hi, how's it going? Oh, I saw you posted this on social, congrats, that was awesome. Like, not asking people for anything so that when you do need those people, you feel like you're not just reaching out because you need something. And social media is a great way to do that.
And I think it's even interesting because, like, you know, you guys are all peers here, that it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's the CEO of a company that you met once at a restaurant. Like, you know, keep in touch with each other because you guys will kind of come up in the corporate world and the working world together, and you'll need each other.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge
So many people I was co-interns with are like presidents of companies now, so that's really helpful.
So one of the things that we talked about before this, and I love that you said that, is make people want to work with you. Can you share some examples of how this tenet has served you in your career?
Yes. People want to do business with people they like. There are a lot of people with great skills. There are a lot of people with great experience. When you go in for an interview, they are thinking not just about, okay, can they do the job, but do they want to work with you? And part of that means that you can't burn bridges. Fashion is, and when I say fashion, I mean fashion and beauty because it's one and the same, very, very small industry. And your reputation doesn't follow you, it precedes you. The minute you do something at a company, that spreads like wildfire, and then there's a million people who have already gotten the heads up that they should not be working with you because you did X, Y, and Z. So
Good or bad? The good stuff follows you too.
Yeah, the good stuff follows you too, but the bad stuff goes even faster. And I think that sometimes, you know, people don't realize the effect that how they treat people can have on other people. And I've always lived sort of with the mantra that I am really fortunate to have worked in the places that I have, and I've been fortunate to have mentors and bosses and colleagues that have always wanted me to grow. So therefore, I always want people to grow. So, you know, we always say that, you know, if female empowerment is such a trend right now. It's like, but live it and really support your friends in really pursuing their dreams, because it comes back tenfold. And we were talking earlier, I just connected Sophia with another person that she needs to connect with for whatever reason. And I joked, I'm like, this is like my Olympics. Like, I live to connect people because it brings me joy to see when two people come together that are really aligned and then can make something amazing happen. And it's not diminishing me in any way to give up that contact. So I think that's important. So be gracious with your connections. Keep an eye on those who take advantage of them, but be gracious.
And I think that's like a very refreshing point of view, because you really don't hear that a lot, and people are sort of can be very secretive about that kind of, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I love connecting people. And then, that's where a lot of, gratification comes. You see kind of beautiful things happen, businesses, and it's super cool. Okay, so I want to kind of touch back on this, that the idea that a career is a journey, so that you don't necessarily have to choose either an entrepreneurial path versus, a corporate career path. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the good, like how you made that work for you?
Well, I mean, I really just tried to be entrepreneurial within a corporate environment. So obviously, I started at DKNY with no PR experience. So how did I get that job? I was at Mary Claire. I was doing accessories. I heard there was an accessories PR job that opened at DKNY. And I knew the first thing they were going to say was, but you don't have PR experience. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I really do, because I speak to those PR people all day long, and I know who I hate working with, and I know who does their job well. So instead of like contacting DKNY, and I think this is a really important point, I thought about who has leverage, who can drop my name to the person who's hiring for this position instead of me applying for the job. So I called my friend who was an editor at Town & Country, and I said, there's this PR job at DKNY. I have no PR experience, but I have PR experience based on what I do at Mary Claire. Can you just drop my name? So she dropped my name, and they called me, which is the leverage you want. So I was like, oh, thank you so much for reaching out, thinking of me. I totally orchestrated that whole thing, but well done that you actually did it. And really started, so went in there as accessories, and they didn't have lookbooks. It's like, okay, well, how do you want editors to know what your collection is? So I started making my own lookbooks, and I would take the pictures myself, and I would literally go get, I remember like, I took so much, it's like an arts and crafts, I love arts and crafts, so I would take like a really amazing fabric, and I would put it on the photocopy machine and take a photocopy of the like embroidered floral print of the season and make that like my lookbook cover for the season. And then I would print it myself and then send it out. And then I started to realize, well, I'm doing DKNY, but why am I not doing Donna Karan? It's the same editors. So I pitched my boss and I said, listen, I know accessories are like the stepchild in this company. I said, but I really think that I can make it a thing. Accessories are the future. This is before it bags. This is like early days. And they were like, well, I mean, sure, why not do it? Because no one cared. So it's like seizing that white space opportunity because nobody cares about it and adopting it as something that you care about and then proving that you can make something of it. And then, so I did that. Atelier, Donna Karan, when LVMH bought Donna Karan back in the early 2000s, the first thing they asked me was, who are you dressing for the Oscars? And I'm like, well, we don't have the right dresses to dress anyone for the Oscars because celebrities want internal, corseted, structured gowns, not like jersey that's going to show like every ounce of cellulite they have on the Glam Cam 360 thing. So they looked at me like, I can't believe she just said that. And I was like, why don't you give me a budget and I'll start a collection that is appropriate for the red carpet. So they gave me $1 million. They did.
No big deal.
And I hired my own designer from Marchesa. And I hired an atelier, a little atelier on 39th Street and 9th Avenue because, you know, Fashion Week and award season happens at the same time. So the pattern room, the sewers were never available to do anything outside of the show stuff. So I wanted like my own thing. And the strategy was, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to show this to press. I'm going to only show it to celebrities and their stylists, which will make it seasonless because no one will have seen it until it hits the carpet. And then when it hits the carpet, then I will selectively let Bergdorf Goodman or, you know, some amazing woman in Dubai who wants to buy a $35,000 gown see the collection. And that's what we did for 3 years, and it ended up being getting the sort of honor from the Hollywood Reporter of being top 25 best red carpet brands at the time, which we made out of nothing.
Incredible. That's incredible. What would you say is the hardest thing you've ever done in your career?
The hardest thing I've ever done, it's a great question. I would say, well, this is a fun fact. So I grew up stuttering, and to even be speaking on stage, like, and I've spoken a lot in my career now, but I grew up afraid to like speak in public and afraid to say my name, and kids would always make fun of me. Like, this was through college. Like, this was not like a little kid thing. Like, it was a constant thing. So really, when you think about being in PR and having to be a communicator 24/7, that's like the opposite job you should have. Like, you should go like do something like that's by yourself, not talking to anyone. So I think overcoming that is probably the hardest thing. And then I would say really having to, really be a strong leader in the sense that when you put your sort of mentorship into someone and you really try to grow them and you realize that no matter what you do, you're not getting through, and that person is either not functioning at the level they should or not really believing that, their work matters, and really having to let that person go. I've had to, unfortunately, let people go over the years, and it's never an easy thing to do because it's someone's livelihood. But that's why when you get those internships or you get your first job, really recognizing how lucky you are to have that job, whether it is, like they were saying before, going to get someone's coffee. It's like you have a seat in that office. That is a privilege. And really, really take advantage of it. And I always say that you don't get promoted for doing your job. You get promoted for going above and beyond your job. And that's always what I've tried to do in my own career and what I've tried to teach everyone who's worked for me. But, I think the hardest thing is really trying to constantly push yourself to do better over and over again.
Cool. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? So I've on my own again, and right now I'm really sort of starting to work with companies, and I'm lovingly calling it, but now I'm really thinking I am calling it really this rent a CMO mentality, because I've seen that the companies that have contacted me in the month that I've been out of work, there is this missing sort of executive person who comes in with a fresh perspective across every vertical, who can really sort of understand where the brand is at this very second and where it can go. So I'm positioning my little company as that. And I'm also launching a podcast for Leave Your Mark, which is already cast, but now I have to just produce it. So that'll be a fun thing this summer.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And I think we're going to do
Are we doing Q&A? No? Are we doing Q&A? Yes, we are doing Q&A. Where's Uma? Okay. Anyone, if you guys have to have questions, come on.
Hi, my name is Zoe. Thank you so much for being here. My question is, in terms of the title Art of Storytelling, what are some things that we can do in our content when we are in that influencer position to really grab the audience's attention and tell the story in the 5 to 10 seconds that they're looking at the social media or the post?
So I think it goes back to what is the DNA of your brand. When in brand marketing, we always think about, like, when you start a company, why did you start that company? Like, what is your DNA? What do you stand for? When I was developing DKNY PR Girl, I sat down and I wrote a brand filter for her, which was, she's witty, she's whimsical, she's accessible yet aspirational. So you kind of think of words that make up what your brand stands for. And then you think about what are the types of things that you should be speaking about, and what are the types of things that you should let other people speak about. It's like, what's your reason for being? And I think that people that have strong brands are very specific in the way that they approach what they do. Take example, Man Repeller. very specific, right? She is literally focusing on a niche of man repelling and what that means, right? So that I think will then really direct your content. So a lot of times there's like something popular happening in the world, and it's very obvious when brands jump in who shouldn't jump in. So stay in your lane, find your niche, be really pointed about it, and I always, I never followed other people on social for other brands because I wanted to put on blinders because I never wanted to like subconsciously like copy someone. So really just I would say stay within yourself in the sense like you have your own point of view, you have your own style, you have your own voice. You don't need to look at what other people are doing. Just do you and be authentic about it, and that is the way that your content will resonate.
And one of the things, I'm curious to hear what you think about this, is, and I've just been learning it, is start with the end, not the beginning. So I think that like it's sort of very human nature to want to tell a chronological story. But what I've noticed even specifically in creating video content, it's you actually have to show the viewer kind of what they'll end up with in the video first, like kind of like a snippet of the end before they get into the beginning. And I think that's just like an interesting thing to play with because, we all want to say like, okay, this is my brand, this is where it came from, blah, 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 and this is the journey that I've been on to get here. And maybe sometimes it really pays off to say, I'm here, and then this is how I got here.
I think that's so smart. The first 3 seconds of a video is all you get. You lose them after the first 3. You only have them for the first 3 seconds. So you're so right. Starting out with the once upon a time, they're gone. They never heard what happened after once upon a time.
They don't owe you anything. So, any other questions?
Questions, concerns, comments?
Hi, my name is Magdalene. I was just wondering, what would you recommend to someone looking to get an internship in fashion if they have little to no prior experience?
Well, if you have to have experience to get an internship, I think that's the purpose of the internship, right? So
Right.
I think companies right now are either paying or you have to get school credit. So coming at a company, already having done that research, if it is school credit, being like, listen, I can get, 3 credits for this class, and that already takes you past step 1, which is the company trying to figure out if they have to pay you or not. And then I think really sort of reaching out to people in a very tailored way. So if you want to work at company X, it's very easy to like go jump on LinkedIn, figure out who works there, go on their social, follow them, not be a stalker because no one wants a stalker, but when you're going to email them your pitch for an internship, really be specific about their work and that you've been following their work and you know that they just did this amazing thing and you'd love to be a part of that and learn and show them that it's not a template that you just sent out to 400 people. So it takes a little bit of extra time, but it's worth it. And I think that, so I don't even know if you guys know this, but if you read my book, you will know this. I went to University of Maryland. Sorry, I did. Because I got a full scholarship, but anyway. So I was a neurobiology and physiology major. I was pre-med. I thought I was going to be a plastic surgeon. I worked for a plastic surgeon for all of my years of high school, and that was what I was going to do. Granted, I grew up in a room wallpapered with every fashion editorial, but back then in the 80s, fashion was not a job. Your guidance counselor was like, well, you could be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor. That was it. There was no fashion anything. So I literally, junior year, had this epiphany that I want to work in fashion. And oh my God, I had no internships that were fashion related. My major was neurobiology and physiology. Who the hell wants that? Nobody. And what was I going to do? So I realized that I wanted to work in a magazine. So I got an internship at Washingtonian Magazine in ad sales, which was horrendous. Cold calling people to sell ads, but while I was there, I saw those people over in editorial, and I was like, they have cool jobs. They're like reviewing restaurants, like they can give their opinion. It's very opinionated. I thought that'd be something I'd like to do. And I went over, so I would do my ad sale job, and then I would go over to editorial and say, can I help you guys with something? Can I learn something? And then once I did that, and everyone was planning their like after senior year trip to Europe, I'm like, no, I don't deserve that trip because I have to now regroup. So I sent cover letter and resume for whatever it's worth to a bunch of magazines. And I said, point blank, I do not have fashion experience. I set out in college to be a plastic surgeon. I've always loved fashion. I've read Harper's Bazaar since I'm like whatever age. And I hope you'll give me the opportunity to sort of re-correct my course. And I would love to learn what you do. And I was super honest about it. And I got the internship. Richard Sinnott was there. Was he there for you too? Oh my God, that's so funny. He's now like the creative director of Michael Kors for accessories. And I asked him when I got there, I said, I'm just so curious, how did I get this job? And he's like, well, we like that you were well-rounded and really honest. Now, I just want to say one thing about honesty. You can never be honest about a core competency that a job needs that you say that you can't do. So you need to make sure if you're being honest about something, it's not going to be a red flag about something. But in this case, it was just my lack of experience. I was just owning it because I'd look at my resume and be like, oh, right, she's pre-med. That's totally relevant to the fashion closet at Bazaar.
Yeah. And I feel like I see a lot of intern resumes, and I mean, I don't have as much experience, or I didn't at the time when I was applying for internships as a lot of you guys probably have or will have. And it's intimidating, but I do think, like, in fact, I just hired somebody for a full-time job whose resume just sang to me, and she didn't have a background in, fashion in the way that, like, a lot of people at Women's Wear Daily have. But something about the resume and the way that she wrote it and her cover letter was just phenomenal, and it really spoke to me. And I met with her, and I gave her an edit test, and the best part about it is that it was delivered 10 minutes early. It was actually like a 2-part edit test. Both she submitted early. She did an excellent job. And I was just like, this is somebody that will work for it. So there's a lot that I can teach, and I actually love teaching. But that energy, I can't create that drive. I can't make that happen. So show that part of yourself. I think that that's like a really interesting kind of thing to see in a candidate.
That's a great point. I actually also want to point you guys, I have a career advice column on Forbes.com. And I recently interviewed some of the top recruiters in fashion in New York to ask them what they look for on a resume, because when I was at Allison Olivia, the person who heads up our buying team turned around one day and she was like, look at this resume. It is literally a Valentine's Day card. Please write an article to tell people how to do their resume, because people get too creative or it's the opposite. So there's a really good article with great advice from these top recruiters on Forbes on what they're looking for on a resume. And cover letters, I mean, are really an email these days. There's no such thing as a cover letter, but I would highly recommend reading it.
Any more? I think we have a question over here and a question over there too. Wrap it up. Can we do one more question? Can we do this question? Thanks.
Hi, this is Stephanie. You mentioned before that you struggled to communicate most of your life, and I think most of us around us would notice that, like, we don't really believe that just because, like, you're presenting so well today. So we just want.
So you're saying I'm lying?
No. I'm just curious as into, like, what advice do you have for maybe students like me who are kind of struggling going over that plimp, and like what mindsets or just any advice in general.
So, you've got to speak to a mirror. I'm not kidding. You got to sit down with yourself, and you have to, when you are doing an internship or you're going to be somewhere where there's going to be executives that you can network with, you never want to miss an opportunity. If you're in the elevator with a CEO and he says, hey, what do you want to do? And you're like, you have to have your elevator pitch on repeat. Like, you know exactly what you want to do, exactly what you want to say. And the way that you know that is by practicing it. So have someone record you or say it in the mirror over and over again. You can't just say it in your head. You have to say it out loud. And it's practice. It's practice and being comfortable in your own skin to know that you have something unique to say, and then just be proud to say it.